Hey and welcome to New World with Aragon. So I'd like to go over which professions you should be focusing on as a newer player within this game. And in my opinion, engineering is one of the best ones to have, since it will give you the ability to craft up these certain tools which you can get nowhere else in the game. You cannot obtain them from monsters, you cannot obtain them from chests. Unlike gear, you can get all of your weapons just from killing enemies, from searching those chests, and thus you don't actually have to even go out there and craft them. It's the same with all of this armor. There's really not much point. So engineering becomes the most appealing, since you will need 4 of these different tools, 5 if you want to include fishing. You start out with flint, then you go to your iron ones, and then you go to your steel ones, then you go to your star metal ones, and then you go to your orcalium ones, which you then will want to make sure you have the best perks. However, keep in mind that each of these certain tools has a particular required level. You can see steel is 20 to 25, whereas your orcalium is required level 60. So you have to be max level to be able to take advantage of them, and star metal is level 40. The best perks, in my opinion, are what you can see with this logging axe. It gives you the yield, it gives you the luck, and it gives you the discipline. The yield giving you exactly that, more of that resource that you're gathering. Luck gives you the ability to get better resources of what you're gathering. And discipline gives you the ability to gain more XP for that certain gathering ability. Keep in mind, instead of the lumberjack's discipline to give you XP, you might actually want Azoth extraction instead, or even durability, since your XP is limited. Once you've hit that max level in the certain gathering profession, you no longer need the XP, since it won't benefit you with anything. For example, skinning, which is the easiest to level up. And you can see these prices aren't exactly cheap, especially for a newer player. But the main reason I suggest engineering is because, again, you cannot go and farm these certain tools. There's no way you can obtain them within the game except from other players from this trade post. Another key profession you might want to look at is armoring. It gives you the ability to craft up those storage bags for your extra inventory space. This game is notorious for the amount of items you gather, and increasing this storage space can be vital to give you that extra quality of life improvement. It'll give you the ability to go out for longer periods on gathering and not have to worry about your inventory suddenly getting full and then going back to the settlement to dump them in the storage and then heading back out again. When you hit that level 45, you will have all 3 bags slots, and armoring gives you that ability to craft those bags, albeit they will still be very expensive to craft, since you will need to go to your faction vendor, and here you can go and buy those certain runes which you will then use to create those bags. You can see the minor rune, then the green one, the major rune, and then the blue one here, the greater rune, and finally the purple one, the grand rune. Each of those giving you those higher quality bags. Of course, each bag will also have a level requirement, so starting out in the game, you won't exactly have as high level bags. And finally, you want to pick up cooking for the extra buff food. But again, this isn't vitally important. There's no real need to craft loads of food, and cooking, if you don't focus on it, you can see it will level up fairly easily just by popping over and crafting that food you may need for the extra heals. For example, I just craft a bunch of traveling rations and they'll give me the ability to heal a little bit while outside of combat and regen that health. And just crafting those up every now and again will rank cooking up no time at all. But what you want to look at for cooking is these trade skill foods, allowing you here to gain more luck, which means you can gain better resources upon mining things or logging or harvesting. And you can see there's different types of food here you can use to gain that luck. And then if you're a serious crafter, there's all of these different crafting foods for those certain crafting professions as well. So those would be the 3 recommended crafting professions for any new player. However, you just want to focus on one, since they get seriously expensive to rank up in those later levels, especially when you get over 100. So if you're just starting out in this game, my first recommendation is engineering for just the ability to level tools. You will also have the benefit of being able to create those hatchets, those bows, and also those muskets as weapons as well. And then you do have armoring, which will give you the ability to create those satchels. You can see all of those inventory bags. On the other side, you can then craft your own armor and not have to rely on a chance of getting the item you may want from your enemies. But again, in my opinion, armoring just for armor is useless until you're in endgame, since that's when you want to have the top to your armor. Otherwise, when you're leveling, you'll continually end up replacing the stuff you've crafted or even the stuff you just pick up. Same with weaponsmithing. You will always just obtain tons of weapons just by killing enemies, and then you can just sift through them and pick out the ones you want. And it's the same with jewel crafting. You will generally get different types of amulets, your different earrings and your different rings, albeit they're a lot rarer to get, especially the ones you want. So it may be something you want to look at, but in my opinion, again, they're not exactly important until you get to that end game, get to level 60, and then you're focusing on just getting the best gear. Arcana, again, unless you want to be some serious potion master, it's still not important until you're in endgame. It will give you the ability to craft your magic weapons, but again, they drop all over the place from the certain enemies that you kill while leveling. And that's it. Don't bother focusing on your gathering or your refining skills explicitly. Focus on a certain crafting profession, and as a result, you will end up leveling your gathering and also your refining due to those resources that you obtain, unless you completely just buy all the resources you need for your crafting, which I do not recommend. Can be fiercely expensive. Right now I'm just buying the iron ore for my weaponsmithing. It can be very expensive, but if you buy it at certain times of the day when there's lots available and nobody's buying, then it can be very cheap and can be worth just buying rather than grinding, and that's for you to judge. Lastly, ideally you would play with a group of friends and you would split up who focuses on what crafting profession. Ideally, of course, you'd have 7 friends and each one of you would focus on one of the given crafting professions. For example, right now I have been given the task to focus on weaponsmithing, so that is what I'm doing. So that's going to conclude this video. Again, just my 3 top recommendations: armoring for inventory space, engineering for tools, and finally cooking for that heal and buff food, but not something I would entirely focus on. So it'd be mainly just engineering for the tools which you cannot obtain anywhere else in the game except by crafting or from other players who have crafted them. So hopefully this has been somewhat insightful and helpful to you guys. I'm nearly level 60 and I'm on my grind with professions. I have a group of friends, I have somebody else who is focusing on that engineering while I'm focusing on the weaponsmithing. My opinion, not really a great profession, since getting weapons is not that hard within this game. Of course, maybe if you're in top end game and you want to get that warhammer with the specific stats and perks, it might be very hard to farm it out, and thus crafting can just be the easiest way. So hopefully I presented this well, and if I did, consider leaving the video a like, and if you're new around here, consider subscribing, and we'll see you guys around. Goodbye for now.